잉그리드 프라몰링 사무엘슨 교수님께서 아동권리협약의 스웨덴 국내법화 사례에 대하여 강연해 주시겠습니다. 기조강연은 영상으로 함께 보시겠습니다.
Good morning or good evening or whatever. My name is Ingrid Pramling Samuelsson, and I have been the world president for OMEP, Organisation Mondiale d'Education Préscolaire, between 2008 and 2014, and have worked with the UN Convention a lot. And I would say long before me, I can say that the beginning of working with the UN Convention on the Right of the Child is actually something OMEP has been very involved in. We have actually had representatives from OMEP working with the people at UN in Geneva when they become, before it was ready. And I can also remember on the conference we had, there were specific items we worked with and gave feedback from. And I'm going to share my screen with you now. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some touchdowns of children's rights in Sweden. And let me begin by saying that many countries, all countries except the United States, have ratified the UN Convention on the Right of the Child. But some countries have also put the convention into the law. And that is, I would say, is the next step, because ratification is not obligatory in the way a law is. So I'm quite proud that Sweden in 2020 made the UN Convention into a law. And you could say by that there's a lot of discussion, and you write about it, you talk about a child right perspective became a notion that is used everywhere, a child right school, a child right municipalities, and so on. And it, of course, gives children other legal status that become much stronger in the legal system when the UN Convention become law. But it can also be used, and it's also used as a pedagogical tool. What does it mean in preschool to work with all the different items from the UN Convention? If anything to be changed for the child, they have to write what they call a consequence description. What will happen for children if something will be changed? So it's a really good tool to use. And all of this is, of course, fall back to a child perspective, which is what we have for centers called it in preschool. We say that it is child-centered activities and so on, which means actually that we come back to paragraph 3, that we should do what we think is the best for the child, but it is an adult perspective of children and what they need. And the other aspect, children's perspective, is paragraph 12, and that has to do with children's own voices, children's own saying, and so on. So these are two different aspects, which both are important in everything which has to do with children. We must take responsibility as adults and do what we think is best for them. But as important is it to listen to children and take their perspective. And in Sweden, and what I will say is the UN Convention of the Right of the Child is, for me, very closely related to Agenda 2030, about the Sustainable Development Goal. And in the new curriculum in Sweden, which is possible to download in English at the net, you could say that right from the beginning, they say that sustainable development, economy, social, and environment should all be included in the work in preschool. And the UN Convention on the Right of the Child is, of course, something which is used through, that is central, just like the Sustainable Development Goal. And they also have, in the new curriculum, increased the internationalization, where they talk about social and cultural meeting place. We have in Sweden more than 1/5 of all children in early childhood education are children with other mother tongue than Swedish. parents from other countries. And you could say one of the main goals is that the preschool should provide each child with conditions to develop a growing responsibility for and an interest in sustainable development and active participation in society. And you could say it's all about becoming a global citizen. It's all about global citizenship, which of course begin in the local citizenship and in preschool. Preschool is an excellent place where you become, where it is a kind of small society, what you have to work with. So you see how they are linked together, and both of these are much more stronger in the new curriculum than it was before. If we look at how it is formulated about participation and influence of the child, which is a special section, it says the goal says that preschool should provide each child with condition to develop an interest in and ability to express thoughts and opinions so they can influence their situation. An ability to assume and responsibility for her or his own actions and for the environment in the preschool. And an understanding of democratic principles and the ability to cooperate and make decisions in accordance with them. So all these has to do with democracy, solidarity, agency, understanding of other people, and so on, respecting other cultures and whatever it is. So it's very clear spoken out. And I would say there is one person that I think is very good to use for both develop it in children's rights in preschool, but also for analyzing what's going on there. And you can say all this about children's rights and about Agenda 2030 is about communication and interaction and dialogue. And we know from research that teachers talk a lot to children, but they do not often listen. I mean, if we look at Iram Shorai Blatchford's observations of more than 5,000 communication situations in preschools of high quality in England, she says that about 5% that is a real dialogue. Most of it is just the teacher say something, the child answer, or the opposite, but very seldom a really dialogue when it goes forward and back. And the same is for, we have had in our research group, Agneta, who have looked at the toddlers and communication with teachers. And she says that teachers are nice to children, they talk a lot with them, but they hardly never listen and take the time to go into some kind of dialogue with children. This man, Harry Shearer, he has worked a lot. I mean, this article is 20 years old, but still, it's one of the most that could work most effectively if you look at the children's rights. And he's talking about opening opportunities and obligations. And he has 5 steps. And he can say that the first step, children are listening to. This is what we, for example, hear from Radio de Media in Italy. And that's nice, but it's not enough. That's just the beginning to listening to children. He says at the step number 2, he said, children get support to express their views and ideas. I mean, it's one thing to just take an opportunity when someone says something, you listen to the child and that's it. But to give support to children means that you have to arrange everyday life so it's possible to do it, because it's not always possible to do it when you have 25 children. So that's a question of how you arrange your day with children. And the third step is children get their views and ideas and knowledge from adults, that you really are saying something so children can understand that you are listening to them. It means something what they are saying. And the fourth step he's talking about, children are involved in the decision process. They are part of taking decisions about what they should do and how things should be. And the last one is children participate and take responsibilities over decisions. And of course, these different steps have partly to do with children's age. Maybe children, toddlers, cannot participate and take responsibility over decisions. But we have made research in the Nordic countries where we have analyzed toddlers and in preschool, and we can see all the 4 first steps. It's possible to see and describe in toddler groups. So you really can use them, and you can think about them when you plan your activities, but you can also analyze and see, what am I doing that is good? What do I need to change to really be able to go into communication with children? I will show you a book that I think we are quite, we think it's a very good book about children's rights in Sweden. And it's a book called Children's Planet. And it's a book for children, and it is developed together with preschool children in the preschool. They have worked, and artists have worked together with children. And the whole message is both about the UN Convention of the Right and the Education for Sustainable Development Goals. And these are extremely close related, because it's always happening about sustainability is a question also of the right for the child, and vice versa. But the book, children love the book. It's done by Swedish OMEC together with some other organizations, Save the Children and so on. But it is an artist who has written it and made the pictures. And with it also comes a small booklet with supervision for teachers, where it is developed how you can work with the different articles in relation to the different parts of the text. And with it, together with it, also comes music, which is possible to download from Spotify. And children love these different songs and music. And I'm pretty, this has been free delivered to many preschools in Sweden. And then the one, when it came to an end, they have to buy it, but it's very inexpensive. And I'm really sure that these people who have done it would love, if you are interested in getting if you want to translate it or something. So it's some kind of advertisement, but I think it's a really good book focusing on these questions. As I said, children's rights is very close related to the Sustainable Development Goal, and not the least Goal 4, when they talk about ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. And it says by 2030, ensure that all girls and boys have access to quality early childhood development, care, and pre-primary education, so they are ready for primary education. Some people got very upset when it was formulated like this, ready for primary education. And they said, is that what we are going to do? But I mean, if people think that you should do the things in preschool that you do in primary school, but in an easier way, it is in the mind of people who read it, because it doesn't say. What does it mean to make children ready for the primary education? You could see the fact that children are in preschool, in a group with other children, away from their parents. That is a way, one kind of preparation. But there are many other things. And I would say that in most countries, if you work with the curriculum you have developed for preschool, that is a preparation for preschool. It doesn't mean that you have to do mathematics and education and reading or writing the way you do in primary school. Not at all. But the most interesting, I think, is Goal 4.7, when it says that by 2030, ensure that all learners acquire the knowledge and skill needed to promote sustainable development through education for sustainable development and for sustainable lifestyles, human rights, gender equality, promotion of a culture of peace and non-violence, global citizenship, and appreciation of cultural diversity, and a culture's contribution to sustainable development. This point out that this is the content, whether we talk about preschool teacher education or we talk about 3 years old in preschool. We put a finger on the spot that this is a development process. It's not possible when you are 5 years old that children should know what sustainable lifestyle means, but you can begin the travel in this direction. You can begin to teach children about global citizenship, depending on what you do, and so on. So this process is nothing you can work with one semester and then you can go ahead. It's not a subject that you can teach. It's something that must be involved in whatever you do, which has to do with children's rights to become part of the challenges we have in the world today, about climate change, about poverty, and so on. I'll give you one example from, I think, a very good project from New Zealand. And it is, we have called it To Act for Change in New Zealand, which is part of becoming a global a citizenship. And this is a project that they've worked for a couple of months with, but I will tell it in 2 or 3 minutes so you understand there's so much more. But the whole point is that it's a preschool located near the beach. And when children and teachers go there, they discover rubbish and they pick it up and they recycle it. But the next time they come, it's the same again. There's a lot of rubbish and they begin to talk about that there are dolphins outside in the sea. It's an area where there's a lot of dolphins. And what happened in all this rubbish go out with plastic and paper and whatever it is out to the sea, what will happen with the dolphins? And they begin to think about where does all this rubbish come from? And they are beginning to look at with the wind, and they realize that some days there are more rubbish than other days. And they begin to think about, is it something further away? So they walked away on the beach further from the preschool. And then they realized they found a place where the city stormwater wells had their outlet to the sea. So it's actually things that people threw away in the city that come out to the beach. And then they discussed that in the preschool and they made an appointment with responsible people in the municipality and complained about this. And of course they have to do something about it, but that will take time. But the local newspaper became interested in the whole this process and followed the children to the municipality. And then they wrote articles about it and children's ideas about it, and children have made drawings and gave away to people at the municipality about what happened to the dolphins and so on. And then an artist in the community wrote about it in the newspaper, and then he made a prototype of a dolphin to put on the manhole. And then they have to ask for donation in different companies to produce and fix dolphins to the manhole cover. And you can see in the corner where there is where it's put on the manhole cover. And this is not only in that city, it has spread to many cities in New Zealand. So what you really can say is that children's rights is they have been part of a change of something that wasn't good. And you could say it is about children's rights, it is about sustainable development, it's about environment question, what happened to the environment, it's about citizenship, the right to influence, it's about economy, when they understand that it costs a lot of money to make this and they have to get money from somewhere. So it's all about democracy, about the transformative change for sustainability. And all aspects, you can say, of sustainable development, economy, social and cultural, and economy is integrated by an innovative children and teachers in this project. And there's a lot of other projects like this, where you can see how children's rights and sustainability are related together. And I will end by pointing to some of the articles in Agenda 2030, which has to do with health or gender equality. And health is something which also is pointed to very strongly in our revised curriculum, because it has over the world had been more and more kids who get fatter and fatter, and they realize that children need to be involved more in physical activities. And also gender equality, it must be a question of that children can do, whether they are boys or girls, they can do everything. When I grew up, you couldn't play football when you were a girl, at least not in the team. You could do it by your own, but you couldn't in the team. But today it's obvious that you can do that. If you are a girl, you want to play football, that's fine. And so it's all about agency and the child's decision. If the child wants to be involved in football, I mean, they should do it. But sometimes it is parents who want to do it. I have seen when I've been there with my granddaughter that some parents want their children to play football, but children are not really interested. So it is a negotiation and integration and communication between adults and children. What is it for each child they want to do, and how can they do what they wish to do? And finally, the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child and Agenda 2030, both are a content of communication with children. All the articles, children have to learn about them, but it's also a kind of pedagogy to live, to experience all this, what they learn about. So specific with these two aspects are the main point, that it is both a content that have to be communicated and the pedagogy. And I haven't talked about the pedagogy because I have no time to that. But I would say it's all about openness, inspiration, trust to children, and so on. And that play, learning, care is integrated into wholeness in children's world. Thank you very much, and good luck with your conference.